Hi guys, I'm going to start with the Mystical Shaman Oracle, and this is number 17 with Earth. This card talks about being appreciative of, the physical realm, being appreciative of the earth, being appreciative of your body, really grasping the concept of, bringing that spirituality and practicality together, right? Because I think a lot of times we don't do that. A lot of times we get off on a tangent and, we think that like the higher plane is better and whatever, But, when really this is, what we're experiencing. This is heaven on earth. I believe that is such a true thing is, that's how you get there is you appreciate your life and you live it to the fullest. And I feel like this is also saying about, appreciating your body. A lot of times we get down on ourselves because of the way other people might view bodies or how, maybe we don't feel good all the time. Or, a lot of times I think that's also with different types of hierarchy through, thousands of years and millennia. That's kind of been a thing, and I feel like when you think about it, like with a certain beliefs, when, they talk about being too earthly, what's wrong with being earthly? That's what we are, right? And they talk about like, living your life is kind of like, this is the bad part and we have to be good and earn, the good part later. And I feel like this is really talking about, accepting that understanding that, this part that we're living right now, this is the stuff, you know what I mean? We get to feel things. This is the sensuality of life. This is the sensuality of earth. Being able to feel things and experience things and have all those things through your daily life, through the sensations that you have in your body, right? So maybe also somebody needs to kind of like be a little kinder to their body. I know I need to. I haven't been really getting good sleep because, that's the whole concept of your body is the temple, right? Because when you're not feeling good, you're not taking good care of yourself, you're not thinking right. Your body doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So even though, it's a physical thing, that does kind of connect to all the other things like your emotions and your thoughts. If we're not doing ourselves good, body maintenance, then, we're not able to kind of do the things that we need to do to kind of be more spiritual, if that's what we're going for. If we're kind of looking to kind of, have our best life, that's really going to be taking care of ourselves as well. And then we have two, why can't I say it? I used to joke around all the time. Crystal Angel Oracles, and their first one is Larimar. Sensitive emotions, times of heightened emotions and sensitivity call for extra self-care and gentleness. And then the second one is Kyanite. Make time for self-care. Taking care of yourself is essential right now. So I don't know if you guys are feeling this, but I'm feeling this. I don't know if it has anything to do with this astrological stuff we got going on. It's a lot of heady type action up there, but at the same time, all of that stuff, we always look at like Mercury retrograde and things like that as like negative things and but it's all things that we can work with. It's all energy we can work with. It's all symbolism that we can kind of match with ourselves and work with. With Mercury and Saturn being direct, there's less fog, less of that reflection, more clarity in what things mean, right? And with the full moon in Gemini coming up, this might muddy the things a little bit or even add to the energy with more emotional communication or really understanding the messages and purpose of this cycle we went through. But more than that, I kind of feel like this is a bigger cycle we're talking about, though. Maybe it's somebody's kind of like in their Saturn return right now, which those are kind of like the times when we shift a little bit closer to our true being, right? Those are like every 30-ish years or so. We kind of get those deeper lessons and we kind of like shift into being our more who we are, right? But let's go to the tarot. So my first column, we have the Two of Cups, and then we have the Six of Swords. So as this being the person that this is kind of representing, I feel like this is somebody who is either, this could be like a relationship thing too. But I kind of feel like it's more like being able to blend those deeper parts of yourself. The opposites, the alpha omega, the light and the dark, and your sun and your moon, the the feminine and the masculine, all that, you know what I mean? We're intermingling and mixing and flowing all those parts of ourselves, and we're able to kind of like pour into our own cup, right? And so that, I feel like maybe that has been a hard time for somebody to do that. It takes a lot of self-love to do that. And, you know, that does kind of take a couple of years of really doing work. And, you know, especially like if you haven't grown up around like support systems, or you've grown up around people who that's how they view themselves, you know what I mean? But this could be also in a relationship, but in order to have a relationship that's that way, that's really kind of like pouring into each other, you have to be able to pour into yourself, right? So, you know, there's people, and, you know, I'm still working on things on myself, so, you know, I'm not perfect, but like, you work on these things within yourself, and, you know, you can go years having a great relationship or a great, you know, whatever, and being able to kind of like be in love with yourself. I don't know how else to say that, but being able to kind of like, you know, blend those nurturing waters within yourself only makes you a better person in all of your relationships. And I feel like somebody is kind of understanding that, and things are kind of like, you know, we're going on to calmer shores, right? Or also it could be about, you know, being guided in that way. We're allowing ourselves to kind of be our own guide to the calmer shores, being able to understand what that feels like. And so my second column of what we need to kind of work on, we have the Three of Swords, and then we have the Chariot. So I feel like this is somebody that, you know, especially if this is like a Saturn returny type thing, you know what I mean? Or if this is something that you've really been working on for a while, I feel like this could be like, you know, you're on some sort of path of healing. And I feel like right now, maybe you're kind of feeling like this huge shift in this. This is something that is really kind of like, you know, kind of highlighting those points that you really need to work on. Because the Three of Swords to me is my card of blending your mind and your heart, right? It's you're able to understand how you feel and how you think, right? Rather than mixing the two, not having fear be, you know, what propels you, and also not propelling yourself from pure emotion, because a lot of times that's what that is. It's being able to kind of like intuitively understand what you're really feeling and why you're feeling it. And if you get confused, because I feel like we have those signals, we know those signals, we understand what that means when things don't feel quite right, when, you know, they're too intense, and there's always a little bit of hesitation in the back. Nothing, even impulsive behavior, is ever quite pure when it's something that is not, I don't know how to express that, when it's not purely, you know, intuition. It's usually something that is, you know, there's a hesitance there, but if we're so emotional, we don't have that regulation to kind of pull ourselves back. And I feel like this is somebody who is able to kind of have that straight path, that forceful path, that path of being able to really have a focus and drive, because we kind of have gotten to that point where we're able to kind of blend those two parts of ourselves again, right? We're being able to blend the inner and the outer, right? The mental and the emotional, and we're able to kind of feel what that feels like and use the two together in a beautiful way, rather than just kind of like one or the other. And then my third column is always like our assets. And I love these little cat cards. They're so freaking cute. But we have the Fool. And then we have the Knight of Cups. And I think he's a muscle, which I think is hilarious. Because like the Knight of Cups is kind of like that knight in shining armor type of guy. You know, he comes home and, you know, everybody's like, oh yay, he's back. You know what I mean? He's been on his long journey in this trip or whatever. And he's coming back, you know, to home. It's somebody who is has that chivalry about them. Somebody who has good intentions. And I feel like this is something that, whether this is you or somebody in your atmosphere, I feel like you're ready to allow that to happen. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and go forth. You're able to go forth with this pureness of heart, right? Really being able to be vulnerable, and, you know, everything that you do, having this vulnerable heart on your sleeve type of emotion, but being able to kind of back it up with a little bit of, you know, strength, right? You still have that armor being that knight. You're able to kind of like shield yourself where you're supposed to be, but allow yourself to fully feel and express, right? And this is kind of like a beginning for you. And I feel like this is beautiful. And so the last row we have is kind of like our next step, or, what the advice is. And we have the Magician and we have the Nine of Wands. This feels to me that the Magician, the Magician has like all the things, right? The Magician is kind of like a master of things. There's somebody who is able to kind of understand their surroundings, and they have the ability to use anything around them. These are the type of like MacGyver people, and you young people won't know who that is, but like my mom used to love that guy. But like, put you in the middle of the desert and you would be able to survive because you'd figure out how to like, train snakes or whatever to get you water. I don't know. But I feel like that's the type of person this person is. It's like, use the ability, use the knowledge that use your strengths and your skills and the things around you, and make do with it. If you don't have what you need, you can make do with it. And a lot of times this comes through being persistent, like the Nine of Wands, being persistent and really sticking to your guns and knowing what you want, right? And I feel like this leg of your path, I feel like you're really able to do that because you have that strength behind you. You have that fortitude of being persistent and being able to kind of like be a master of your, MacGyverism. So, yeah. And then my last two oracle cards, or I guess I have three. So we have New Moon in Aquarius, bring love into the situation. So maybe somebody is kind of needing to kind of loosen up a little bit, right? You have the ability to be strong. I think a lot of times too, like if we've been hurt or if we have lack in our self-worth for ourselves, because we're really trying to, those two cups pouring into each other, that immersion of, churning and flowing of emotion and love and spirit for ourselves. If we're not able to do that, and it takes us a while to get there, we are kind of guarded. No matter how healed we are, sometimes we're guarded. And you need to like understand the difference between boundaries and just being straight up, living in a tower by yourself, right? Because towers got to fall. But anyway, so I feel like this is what it's saying is, bring love into the situation. How can you allow yourself to express yourself fully? Because I feel like sometimes when we don't do that, and I kind of feel like that's what the Knight of Cups is saying too. It's kind of like when we don't do that, we feel stifled. I feel stifled if I can't express myself fully. And I know we say that with anger and, with the things that make us mad. Yeah, that too. But sometimes that is so much easier because it doesn't hurt as much. It actually, it protects you because you build that wall of fire. But I feel like if you kind of allow that fluidity and allow yourself to kind of be a little bit vulnerable, things could change for you. You could see where you are loved and you are protected, right? So I don't usually read this whole book, but there is an attuned to the moon, and it says, explore the idea that is not what you know, but whom you know. So I don't know what that means. Maybe that means something for somebody. I'm not connecting it too much with this. But I do feel like maybe looking at things, maybe looking at love or self-love in a different way, I know that for a long time, and I hate to say this because I used to use the word martyrism in a negative way about somebody in my life for a very long time, until I realized that I was being that person. And it was like, no, I let them do that. It's okay. I love them so much. I would, whatever, You're not doing anybody any help when you do that. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you kind of have to be a jerk, right? It means that, you set your boundaries. If somebody crosses something, that's it, right? But at the same time, it's not being afraid that they're going to do it every 5 minutes, right? And you know what? Love feels good, so allow yourself to feel it. Darn it. And then we have my two herbal astrology oracles. We have number 50 with ayahuasca and rebirth. It's rebirth, mastery, great revelation. I'm itching my nose, so that's why you can hear me louder for a second. Discovery of higher self, meeting with the creatrix, divine messenger, gifts from spirit, realization, telepathy, and transcendence. This is Pluto, Jupiter, and Neptune. So that's like being able to be expansive and, in those dreamy, deep parts of ourselves. I feel like, expanding those parts of yourself right now, those deeper, dreamy emotional parts of ourselves. Somebody's holding in their emotions for some reason. But anyways, it also makes me feel like, I think sometimes, especially like in the spiritualness, I think people sometimes feel like there's a separation of that. You know what I mean? They feel like love either means one thing or another. But it's another feeling. It's emotion. Love is what I think spirit is. So I think that if you are able to kind of feel appreciation and love for yourself and learn to kind of accept yourself for who you are, I think that brings you that much closer to spirituality, to that much closer to your higher self. You're appreciating the gift of being you, the gift of you. You know what I mean? You're worshiping. I always say this, but this is kind of how I feel like it. Like if you're somebody who feels like you have to worship or whatever like that, I hate that word because it sounds so like derogatory. But if you feel like there's something that, you know, you want to be grateful for, take care of yourself and love yourself and work on that relationship with yourself, because that's how you get closer to spirit, right? That's how you get closer to God. Because I am one of those people that believes that it is all inside, just like JCPenney's. I'm old, so I know what JCPenney says. But anyways, I hope that meant something for somebody today, and I will talk to you later.